This is Nothing Coherent. I'm Brandon.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Ryan.
This is our special Knives Out non-spoiler and spoiler discussion of the movie. We saw an advanced screening, so we'll make sure to be very clear when the spoilers start, because since we didn't sign anything, we can say whatever we want. We'll make sure to be very clear with everything. We'll talk a lot about what we liked about it, and then, of course, give a score, and then go into, like, a more in-depth talk. Because I feel like talking about this movie, you have to talk about spoilers.
Yeah,
Because it's a whodunit.
It's necessary.
It's a classic whodunit done by Rian Johnson, who last film was very controversial amongst people, his Last Jedi. But all the rest of his work I really liked. I loved Looper. I thought he's a good director, a good storyteller. It's just, of course, going into Last Jedi, I mean, opinions are high because people want something different. But that's a whole other story. Let's talk about Knives Out.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the acting in this movie is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is one of the most, this is probably one of the best well-acted films I've seen. Like, from an entire cast, everybody's killing it in all their scenes. Like, Daniel Craig, I think, steals every scene that he's in, and he's in it more than anybody else in this whole movie. Like, to me, he's having the most fun he's had probably since, he was first cast as, James Bond. I feel like I can really see him putting his passion into this project. Chris Evans also does really good. I still feel like I'm looking at Captain America because of just how big he's, taking that role.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to separate that because I'm this is not Captain America. But, I don't know. It being a whodunit story, I love movies like that. Clue is one of my favorite just, random movies to watch. I can't really rewatch it because, once you know, what happens, it's okay, it's kind of the same thing with this movie. Once you know, whodunit,
yeah.
At that
Sometimes
point,
it's
more
nice
you
to
say?
rewatch them.
Right,
because
then
you can pick up clues.
Then you pick up the clues on your second watch.
You can kind of pick up certain things that you didn't notice before, and you start looking for
that
answer got
about. I will probably see this again for that reason. Mm-hmm. Just to be oh yeah, now it all makes sense.
I could definitely see myself rewatching those later on.
It's a great movie. I don't really know what else I can say. I think the acting is really good. The movie actually has a really great sense of humor. I like the comedy in this movie a lot, which I was not expecting it to be a funny movie. I thought there
a little bit of comic relief in there.
I thought there would be levity in the movie, but it was funnier than I thought it would be going in. Which I wasn't expecting. There are some scenes that are just outright hilarious to me.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting comedy in my whodunit murder mystery movie.
Yeah. I think I enjoyed it because, some of it was a little predictable, but for the most part, there's enough twist in it that you felt like you're engaged throughout the whole movie,
mm-hmm.
Which is always important, obviously, in a mystery film like this, and trying to figure out who did this and who did that. And every character has their own story and their own reasoning, so you at the first part of the movie you're evaluating each
mm-hmm.
of those characters and you're analyzing, and so in your own mind you're evaluating. You're kind of sounds silly, or okay, this person could have a chance. Some of them didn't have that strong of a cause, and they get kind of grouped a little bit, maybe not to spoil anything. But
I think the easiest way to describe it is we get to see the night play out.
Yes.
We're filling in the blanks of well, these are our potential suspects.
Mm-hmm.
Why each one would potentially do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge character for Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Don Johnson, seeing all of them, all of these actors who don't get the time to shine as much as I feel like they should, getting scenes that are cool and their characters being interesting, and you're seeing their motivations. You're seeing, why would this person or this person?
And they go back, they're telling their own story, so you get to see different perspectives of that night going on.
Yeah.
Of the night of the murder or whatever. So I enjoyed that, and then you start to actually see the real clues within each one of those, and then how they're interacting. And so if you pay attention close enough, it's kind of rewarding, because then you start picking up on some things. And then you start guessing through about halfway through the movie, where you educated guesses, and then that's the only thing I look for in a movie like this is something that's engaging and something that keeps me on my toes.
And makes sense. And
makes sense.
That's my biggest thing.
Because they're not just forcing something to happen.
Fly the plane, but if you can't land it, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, and that was the thing I was most worried about going into this movie, was it's easy to get to point A to point C, but filling that B in, it just has to be done well, and it's not like I jammed it in there to make this work. It's naturally fits.
If they didn't have the how it ended, the way they ended it, I mean, this whole movie could have flopped.
Right.
We could have easily been sitting here and we go, man, this was kind of rough, because you wouldn't think that person or whatever. And they did enough of a curveball where you could kind of see it. And it's almost, and I'll in spoiler talk, I'll mention a couple things that which I enjoyed about it, but it could be a negative depending on how you look at it. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I think for you don't get too many murder mystery films like this very often. I think the last one was the Express.
Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah,
we were discussing. I mean, like, the last good horror, or not horror. The last good Who's Done It. I just can't think of one that I walk out of and I was like, wow, that made sense. I had fun. I enjoyed every moment of it. Like, Murder on the Orient Express was good. But, like, this was, like, a whole other level. And, like, the last one I could think of was Prisoners. But, like, I mean, that's...
Prisoners. The cool thing about this one, too, is you jump into it a lot quicker.
Oh, yeah, there's not much time.
Yeah.
And that's what's great.
Yeah, it was a very... I was expecting a bigger setup, just because you don't see these type of films very often, but they had a lot of ground to cover, and they throw you right into it.
Yeah, this movie doesn't slow down at all. Like, I feel like it's constantly moving. Like,
yeah, and I thought the runtime is 2 hours and 10 minutes.
I
know. I did not feel like that. But I was really worried with that runtime. I was like,
this could drag.
Yeah, well, I was waiting because Alamo does the check at 40 minutes.
Yep.
And so I was like, every little bit, I was like, well, they got to be bringing the check out soon. I was like, we got to be reaching a climax. When they finally did, I was like, okay, well, now we're in the end game.
Yeah.
I was like, now we're reaching the...
Well, and what was interesting about it is you think it's about to end, but then I think it added a few more minutes onto it, and I think I'm kind of, looking back at it, I'm kind of glad that they added that last few minutes onto the end.
Yeah.
For a little bit more closure and just to kind of wrap up any of those things that we've been like, well, what would have happened if this, kind of gave you the full story kind of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, and Zach mentioned the acting. I didn't. There was really no issues with the acting. The acting in this, it really came down to literally
Craig had to carry it.
Craig. I mean, he had to. He was the guy that. Yeah, I mean, he's literally behind.
Well, because you put yourself in the role of the detective, and that detective has to be able to play off of every character. Yeah. So you have to have everybody. He has to be so good that everyone can play off of him, regardless of how they were. Tanya. That starts with a C. She was from Hereditary. She's making her way up in Hollywood. She's an up and comer who I will should be following. Good. She's older, but even her in this movie, I thought she was good. Mm-hmm. Not as good as she was in Hereditary, of course, but I thought she was doing great for what she had.
Yeah.
But that's one that I felt like her character itself wasn't as interesting, but her off of Craig was really good.
Yeah. They tried to fill in her backstory a tiny bit, and I thought that kind of lacked a little bit.
Which we'll get into it. Well, I have a lot of there are things I would have done differently.
There's just a few little things, but I mean, when we're nitpicking, it's because we're nitpicking, and I feel like or at least for me, overall, I feel like the movie was great, and I mean, I don't think there's any reason to change anything. But there's just those little things that you.
And it's arguing. It's trying to make a case of this is the movie we got, the movie you want.
Yeah. And
you can't change what you got.
Yeah.
So it's analyzing what you got, not what you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that was what we talked about in the movie, because we'll talk about in the spoiler talk, before the movie began, and even when we were here before, I was like, this is how it's going to end. I was like, I've called it. And so the movie plays to that, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, this is how it has to end. So when it ended, I was like, well, that didn't end how I wanted it to. But critically, removing that, what I wanted, especially for Who's Done It, because you have a theory going in, or even in the first couple minutes, you're like, that person did it.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to use... the movie's going to show me that person did it. And so it's when that doesn't happen, or does it in a different way, you're like, you start to argue with yourself. You're like, well, but
yeah.
What about this? What about that? Like,
but that's what I like about this movie is it as long as it keeps you on your toes and stuff, and it keeps you thinking throughout. I enjoy these type of movies where I want to be caught off guard. I want that. And I want a summary. I love summaries. It's like Sherlock Holmes when he has the whole summary kind of thing where he goes through the whole thing of how this happened and he's reading stuff. I love that. I absolutely love that because it's nitpicking details that you didn't catch. Or, maybe you did catch a couple of them. And you're like, oh, okay, I was on the right track.
Yeah,
but then
you pick up
and then I lost somewhere in there, and then it picked back up. I love those type of things because that means there's a lot deeper writing into it, and it kind of gives a little bit of credibility to the writer.
Yeah, there were parts.
This is where the writer actually gets to go, hey, I got you. I got all of you guys. And I snuck this in here, and you guys didn't catch it. So I enjoy those type of movies. That's why I like Sherlock Holmes so much. I think so.
Yeah.
So, I guess let's give it a score because I can tell each one of us is like keeps getting on the verge of wanting to say something, but you can't because it's. I would personally. So the acting was really good. Thought it was some of the best I've seen this year. Craig, of course, is great. I don't know if best actor, great, but he's great for the movie. Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, he practiced a little bit on the accent.
I heard, we were talking before, we heard he hadn't, revealed his accent until the first day of shooting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's just like garbage.
So, I mean, imagine hearing, Craig, who sounded got the strong British accent, just comes out sounding like he's from a deep
They were probably expecting him to be, this private investigator from England.
He reminds me of Kevin Spacey in
House of Cards.
House of Cards.
It
has
the southern drawl.
Yeah, that southern drawl, but just even how he, shows his character. It reminded me of Kevin Spacey in House of Cards a little bit.
But back to that. I would give it a 9.
I would too.
I'd give it an 8.5 is what I came up with.
Yeah, and that's just personally enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we were talking about before, and we'll do episodes later. Where would I put it in top 10? I don't know if it'd be in there, but personally, I enjoyed it a lot. I do think it is one of the better movies I've seen this year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, so you said 9 as well, and 8.5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, if you want to follow us, subscribe, blah, 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 Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube.
You guys get it.
Yeah, just please do that. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, do all that. So we're going to get ready to spoil it and give you 3 seconds, starting now, to
run away
or turn off.
Throw your phone across the room. You got
because
AirPods in, throw those.
Craig killed everyone. That's how it ended. It was really anticlimactic of that. He really just wanted the money, and him and the maid were.
Actually, he was hallucinating. That was just a bad dream from
Daniel
Craig.
It was from
He's actually no.
This is just James Bond's bad dream.
Daniel Craig is actually a janitor at night, and he always wanted to become a detective. And when he was dreaming, that's what he was dreaming about.
Okay. I thought one of the things that I have a problem with is I feel like we're doing spoilers.
Yeah.
Oh, you're giving me some. Was all the subplots I feel like didn't really go anywhere, like them cutting off the money.
Yep.
Them firing Walt and the affair.
Yep. I wanted a little bit more tie-ins to those to where it would have.
They would have kept coming back throughout the story. I would have been like, okay, this makes more sense. And then the reveal of who actually does it. It's like
Here would be the only things, and I was thinking through this now, the justifications, well, only one of them would be, them cutting off the money would be the reason the daughter calls her, but that's it. But I mean, that still was enough. That's not made clear because the entire family is pushing her to do it.
Yeah.
So it's not like, hey, they went and talked about it. They had a moment of being like, hey, daughter, my daughter, oh daughter, we need to do this or else we're going to be broke.
Yeah. Now, see, to me, I thought that the clear suspect until the end was Walt, the one who was fired. I was like, he has the most to lose, I think, out of everybody.
Yeah. See, the whole family, none of them at the beginning caught my eye, really pulled me to where I go, I think they did it. In fact, there's at one point where I'm like, maybe Daniel Craig's the at one point when he was when he's summarizing everything, not the second to last time, I'm like, maybe they're about to just throw some crazy twist in or something, and maybe he had some sort of tie that he was about to follow up with everything. And like the whole thing with him getting the random envelope with money in it, maybe I'm like they were trying to sidetrack a little bit.
Right, and so what we talked about before the movie, and my theory,
the girl was actually like,
well, is that the old man didn't kill himself or did kill himself, but wanted to prove that the family was just greedy and bad people.
Yeah.
And so he killed himself and then hired the PI to bring out all their wrongdoings.
Yep.
To be like, hey, you're all bad and none of you do deserve this money.
Yeah.
And it's only made you all worse for it. So
Yeah.
that was like what I made up in my mind. So like when they reveal Evans, I'm like, is it predictable? Yeah, and it's hard.
The significance about this, I almost respect that they use Chris Evans, because at the very beginning, you go, okay, they want us to think it's Chris Evans.
Yeah.
He has a stupid, like, I don't give a crap about anything, and it's like in a horror film, who dies first? It's like the idiot, you know?
Yeah.
And so you instantly think the idiot's the one that, so you almost rule him out of your mind, you're like, okay, Chris Evans wouldn't have done it because, well, he's just being stupid.
Yeah.
And so when you go that route, it makes him almost a better villain or whatever when he comes back around. And then when he comes in to mess with her or whatever, and he goes, get in the car, you're like, okay, they're just trying to throw you off. And that's what my mind was. I'm like, okay.
See, I thought he was the perfect one to pin the blame on.
Yeah.
I was like, he's going to get
when they're at the restaurant,
and then the real reveal
when they're
comes
at the
out.
restaurant, I'm like, what I was hoping, I think, maybe,
Right.
is that they're wanting him to look like he's the bad guy,
Mhm.
or wanting us to think he's the bad guy, and then they're going to take another character and just throw them in the mix.
Yeah.
And tie it in somehow that way. But instead, they went full force with him, and you
I
kind
thought all
of
the family was setting him up because he's the easiest one to take the fall because they all hate him.
And so you start rolling those things out, and so like, and you know the writers want you to think it's Chris Evans at that point. But then what I was thinking is like a psychological game, which in a way it was. You just went back to Chris Evans, and he's the one that literally just was behind it all.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is kind of cool that happened, I guess. And Chris Evans being a bad guy isn't too bad.
Yeah, and I thought, critically looking at the twist, I was like, oh, it's good. It's a good twist because they do hide him in plain sight, that they do all that. It's like, he was always there. It was always obvious that he was it. It's just you wanted something deeper.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we were watching The Simpsons, and
Yeah.
well, it was Who Shot Mr. Burns?
Yeah.
Part 2. And Lisa goes, 95% of the time in murders, it's the first suspect. It's the most obvious suspect because it's not Smithers in that episode.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's Smithers. And 95% of the time, it's that. And so it's weird. I was thinking about it. I was like, that does line up with that.
And I think the
to
first
quote
reference,
Dwight Schrute, it's not the person I most suspect or the person I least suspect. The one I most medium suspect.
Yeah, I think the first person that they talk about fighting with him was Chris Evans.
Yeah.
In the first reference.
He's the one that like leaves and is pissed
that's
off.
that's a typical move on a hint in a movie to go, hey, we're going to go ahead and feed you this first, and then we're going to flood you with information,
Right.
and then we're going hopefully you just kind of forget about him and you get kind of mesmerized by everything else. So I respect that. I want to talk about the blood on her shoe. I really enjoyed the fact that they acknowledged that at the end. Yes, because I was afraid that was going to be just over.
They show it, and then it never comes back until like the very end.
Which
and he's like,
I'm
well,
glad
I
that
knew
they
it was
had that
you.
little shot. I like how Daniel Craig recognizes that, and he goes, he's like, "You think I'm stupid? I knew you were all along." And he played it. He played it perfectly with keeping her. That's what kind of helped me tie in and appreciate the movie a little bit more when they made that twist.
Yeah, I liked that he knew. I mean, like realistically, he had a solid 90% of the ID from the beginning. And that he was always smarter than them. That he wasn't just like
ahead of the game,
bumbling idiot. He was 3 to 5 steps ahead of everyone.
And that is good writing. That is really good writing because you almost when you write a story like that, you almost do it in reverse. Where you work from that, and then you build his character into what he knows, and then you build the story around that. Is probably I'm not a movie writer, but I'm guessing that's something how they did that to build the plot, but to more
working backwards.
Normally, it's an outline. You're like, here's how it starts. Here's who did it, or like here's how it starts. Here's like where we need to get going, and here's who did it.
And since Daniel Craig's the focal point throughout the film, you build it around him. But anyways. I really enjoyed that, and then let's see, what else was there? There was something else I was going to say. I can't remember.
Oh man.
I don't know. For me, I mean, like I said my piece a lot, and I don't want to ruin like any of the jokes. And,
right.
Like, even in our spoiler talk, like I mean, like I feel like it's one of those that like I just strongly recommend. Like,
yeah.
I mean, if you're just listening to the spoiler talk, you're like, well, I want to know who did it. Like, I still strongly, even knowing who did it, like I would still recommend the movie. Like, if you looked up or somebody spoiled it, it still doesn't ruin it because obviously
there's so much to it. We are light tracking on this movie now.
Right.
So.
There's a lot of details behind the entire plan and everything that encompasses.
I will mention her family. We didn't get to talk about her family. I thought that whole kind of where they like get into her family and like kind of bring that up for just a split second.
Yeah.
And they use that as leverage. It was just kind of, I don't know. I felt like that was kind of a little bit.
Yeah. I felt like the movie
mudded right there a little bit.
Also, I feel like this old rich guy is way too compassionate, like for her.
I feel like my problem, and I'm not taking a side on this, but I feel like it grinding to a halt for a minute to do the political talk about Trump was really kind of annoying.
Oh, about like just immigration and everything.
Well, I don't like when films interrupt. They had several references to our time currently too, which is really weird to have in a film like that.
Yeah, it makes the movie,
they try to put those little jokes in, but I just don't. I don't know. It was just kind of. But when they have the political talk in there, that was kind of weird.
And normally, I'm like trying to tread lightly here, because like this isn't like to start some kind of like political argument. For me, I mean like, let's be careful here. I think my problem with it is that it feels like it's not part of the movie, that it doesn't move the plot forward too much, that it's just
not really needed.
Yeah, I mean, you could have just been like, her family is illegally here. That's bad. You could if they get deported instead of having a whole 3-5 minute scene where they're like, keep talking about Trump, and I'm like, please just. Why? You have this intentionally just a passion.
If a film goes out of their way to make a political statement, either which way, that's where I kind of lose a little bit of respect for it, because it's a Hollywood kind of.
Yeah.
Well, like try to watch the movie 3 to 5 years from now, it's gonna feel dated. It's gonna feel like it's not timeless anymore.
Right. And my other thing is, I would feel it's either side.
Yeah. And that
I don't like when movies do that in general.
Outside the point of all that, all the references that they make of our time. I hate that for a film like that. You want to be able to watch this 10, 15 years from
that's
now.
why like people can
those
still watch
references
Clue.
are not going to mean anything, or some of them won't mean that much. Maybe to us, but our kids are going to be like, what the heck is that? Or, the whole Trump kind of references is like, okay, they're not going to know what political problems we had now compared to then. So those are just little things, though. But I do like Daniel Craig does have a couple funny scenes that I kind of appreciate.
Him talking about donuts was hilarious.
Yeah,
that was and then where he's like jamming out to the
music.
He's like, oh crap.
Yeah, he's like, oh.
Just this random ambulance just shows up. And he's like, oh no.
So I guess I'll wrap it up.
Yeah,
for this one.
I mean, I can't really think of anything else we can talk about. Like. It's a whodunit story. The reason you're going is to find out who did it.
Yeah, it's modern day Clue.
Yeah.
So next week, it'll probably just be these two. I'm out of town for holidays.
Yep. Thanksgiving is upon us. So.
Next episode, we're going to split a whole turkey. We'll see if we can finish the turkey in 1 hour.
All right.
I'll send my miniature reviews of A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood and Frozen, so you guys will probably talk about that.
Okay.
Yep. I'll send like a text of what I would have said quickly, like a.
We're gonna have an impersonation of Brandon.
No, what we'll do is we'll just call you and we'll just put it on speakerphone next to the mic like we did for Jake that one time.
We'll see where I'm at.
I want to impersonate Brandon's voice.
Okay.
We can get that guy who played Badger from Breaking Bad to do a run-in for us on the podcast. He does not listen.
Well, anyway, thanks for listening. Go see Knives Out. Strongly recommend it. Again, it's gonna get buried under Frozen and everything else, but. Make sure to see it. Ryan Johnson's a good director.
Don't follow the Frozen path. Follow Daniel Craig's path.
Into the no!
And on that note, we're just going to end this.